probably heard people say,
Israel's the only true democracy in this region.
One of the core principles of a functioning democracy is freedom of press, which Israel has violated on numerous occasions.
These are the equipments for a journalist that got murdered by the Israeli forces, so no matter if you're wearing them or not, you get killed.
For comparison, 67 journalists were killed worldwide in 2022, in what was one of the deadliest years for journalists since 2018. On Thursday, Israel announced that it would eliminate journalists who they claim reported the attacks by Palestinian fighters against Israel on the 7th of October. But none of this should really be surprising given Israel's history with journalists, especially Palestinian journalists reporting on Israel's activities in occupied Palestine. In 2022, Israel ranked 86th out of 180 countries on the Reporters Without Borders Press Freedom Index. In 2023, they dropped down to the 97th spot, putting it behind countries such as Albania and Brazil, and putting it far off behind Western democracies with pro-Israel voices. It is important to note that violations by the Israeli forces against members of the press that occur in occupied Palestine are counted towards Palestine's Press Freedom Index. Not Israel's. Since Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's new far-right government coalition rose to power in 2022, Israel's media landscape has destabilized further, and attacks on Palestinian journalists have only increased. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was accused of corruption in 2020, and among the most serious allegations against him is the claim that he offered media mogul Shaul Elovitch regulatory changes worth millions of dollars to his telecom giant Bezeq in exchange for favorable reporting on the Valla News website. The past year, his government coalition has been trying to reduce the Supreme Court's power, which critics say would shield Netanyahu from the corruption charges. In Israel, journalists can be charged with criminal defamation and insulting a public official. Currently, there is also military censorship in Israel. Permission from authorities is needed before covering a range of security issues, and journalists who do not agree to these conditions are denied access. And throughout history, Israel has directly targeted journalists. Shireen Abu Akleh was an American-Palestinian journalist who worked for Al Jazeera and was killed by an Israeli soldier in 2022 while covering an ongoing Israeli raid on the Jenin refugee camp, despite wearing a clearly marked press helmet and vest. During her funeral, mourners were also attacked by Israeli forces. Despite this, Israel initially denied responsibility and refused to cooperate in an investigation. But after many independent investigations, and even one by Israel itself, Israel acknowledged that Shireen Abu Akleh was killed by one of its soldiers, but said it was unintentional. Nearly 2 decades prior, British journalist James Miller faced a similar fate, being killed by an Israeli soldier while filming a documentary in Gaza. Despite holding a white flag and wearing press jackets, Miller and his crew were shot while documenting the bulldozing of Palestinian houses. Despite initial claims by Israel that a Palestinian bullet caused Miller's death, independent investigations revealed that he was deliberately targeted by an Israeli soldier. Israel's subsequent investigation was inconclusive about the source of the fatal shot. In 2009, almost 6 years after Miller's death, Israel compensated his family with £1.5 million. On average, one journalist has been killed a day since 7th of October, as Israeli airstrikes have now killed more than 10,000 Palestinians.
لا تحملها هذه الدروع ولا تحملها هذه القبعات، إنها مجرد شعارات نرتديها فقط، هي لا تحمي أي صحفي على الإطلاق.
And while Palestinian journalists are facing danger on an hourly basis as they report from Gaza, Israel approved emergency measures that could pave the way for the closure of Al Jazeera offices in occupied Palestine. And this is not the first time that Israel wanted international media to clear the way. In 2017, Israel wanted to close Al Jazeera and ban its journalists. And in 2021, Israel destroyed Al Jazeera and EP offices in Gaza.
واضح بأن دلالة لها علاقة بالبعد الإعلامي، وربما هناك انزعاج ما من جيش الاحتلال الإسرائيلي من الدور الذي تقوم به هذه شبكات التلفزة الإعلامية. ولكن في نهاية المطاف يعني هذه الشبكات تقوم بواجبها المهني دون تحريف، دون تزوير، دون تهويل، دون تهوين أيضا من الأمر.
All of this resulted in Reporters Without Borders filing war crimes complaints with the International Criminal Court that were committed against journalists for the third time since 2018. So, is it really fair to claim that Israel
was, is, and it will always remain a proud, strong, and vibrant democracy as a beacon of liberty and shared prosperity in the heart of the Middle East,
despite its repeated attacks on press and journalists?